Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain, so.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning, and welcome to the show.
Oh, yes, indeed. There's been a lot of talk, at least lately, about how they say we need not drop the ball concerning COVID-19. Well, yeah, it turns out that different strokes for different folks. But tell us, Ayo, what have you seen around the vicinity right there in Abuja concerning COVID? How are people responding at the moment?
I attended an event yesterday at, it's about local government autonomy. A good number of people were there. Because it was a controlled environment, people complied with the rules. And just as, people are after some time, seem like people just go, this thing is a little asphyxiating, it's a little suffocating. So maybe a few people, dropped the ball and all, but outside, for a controlled environment, when you want to get into any environment, you are told what to do, put on your mask and all of that. But just as Dr. Alera Roberts said yesterday, our guest, as soon as they cross the threshold into the vicinity, that's it. It's all gone. All of those, regulations, people seem to just lay them aside. On the streets, there's hardly any sign. You go into a restaurant, you go into a mall, even the people who are trying to enforce the rules, so to speak, they are not even, complying with any of these things except the established, facilities like hotels, government establishments and stuff like that. On the streets, there isn't anything like that. You see vehicles, moving around, and people in those vehicles are not wearing the masks. Those who are wearing it, they have it just right here. So I'm just wondering, what exactly are you covering? So I think just as we have heard and seen over time in different parts of the country, it's pretty much the same. And our attitude needs to change. The slide we just showed now says that 758 additional new cases have been added. And Dr. Roberts said to us yesterday, our attitude as a people needs to change, because our strongest weapon against COVID-19 is our attitude. We need to change it, because if you do not change it, you don't really know who is vulnerable. You don't know who has the immunity to contend with it. You don't know the person that does not. Many people are walking about looking hale and hearty, but then they may have debilitating illnesses that COVID-19 could feed on and consequently cause a fatality. Our attitude needs to change. We just need to pay attention to these things. We have so many challenges: security challenge, economic challenge, hunger, poverty, unemployment, but we need to be alive and well to be able to contend with these issues, Chamberlain.
Well, yeah, at the moment, from those figures as well, FCT recording 305 of those cases, of those 758, and then Lagos with some 152. But the thing is, one doesn't know. We're just looking to see what the government will do next, because many don't even want to hear you talk about, maybe another phase of lockdown as a result of this so-called second wave, as it were, because we've heard the president say previously that our economy is so fragile, can't take any more of some of these lockdowns, as it were. So who knows what the recommendations could be. But now that the vaccines are out there, people are taking the vaccines. We're just waiting to see what the authorities will do back here, because if that's the attitude that people have, I guess it just speaks volumes. But not forgetting that Lagos State Governor, it's just putting himself in isolation, having been in contact with some persons who turned down, had COVID-19, But we just keep our eye on all of those and see what exactly happens. But remember, we always try to highlight here, when the PTF did say, look, they didn't know that our health sector was this bad. So what have they done? What are they putting in place to ensure that, having seen that it's this bad, here's what we're going to do? The National Assembly themselves, who he spoke before, so what are they in turn also doing to ensure that these things happen? Because for all you know, the other day, the enemy was speaking about how we need to ensure medical tourism ends. But is it about to? Your guess is as good as mine. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a look at how are the dailies reflecting developments today. Let's take a look at Vanguard for a start. Pay ransom, free our children from bandits. Parents beg FG. 17 students found, says Masari. More students appearing from the bushes, Masari's aid. We thought the bandits were policemen. Escapee. Boko Haram claims responsibility for Kankara school kidnapping. Teachers threaten to shut down schools. And then you've got Zamfara shuts boarding schools. And so all of these riders associated with that big lead story, which has been on for a while now. But it's part of what we're going to continue focusing on today on the program. So I guess we'll keep our gunpowders dry for that one for now. But then that can't escape you. The images you see right there on the front page, and you see some casualties, persons trying to resuscitate people who perhaps may have collapsed as they were. But the heading there you see is Christmas Palliative Stampede. Some survivors of a tragic stampede yesterday during the distribution of Christmas palliative by a non-governmental body, Pink Coin Inc. Nation, around Rumudara town, Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State. And so they've got more photos for you in the paper. But look, this raises huge questions now. I mean, here we are talking about how we need to be a lot more cautious about, social distancing, COVID-19. It appears as though the message may be lost on a lot of people as a result of these images you see here. And then, in addition to this, you just wonder, I thought by now a lot of people should know that when you have to do such, distributing whatever to a huge crowd, chances are that you just may have this kind of stampede or this kind of scenario. So what measures did they put in place to ensure this doesn't happen? So it turns out, look, some of these things are usually taken for granted. Well, we'll stand corrected, but these images you see here underscores some of that school of thought. And so I thought, look, I think we should know better and perhaps moving forward do a lot better than just what we see with this one. It may be well intended, but if you're good, it's evil spoken of what benefit will that be to you? So food for thought to a lot of people, I reckon. And then the governor of Kano State is still speaking up about certain things. Well, it's just tucked in right there. Sanusi not fit to be emir, says Ganduje. Claims he was appointed to spite Jonathan. Oof, okay. Well, you know how some of these things play out, because you know that before all of that development or that scenario played itself out, were there tacit supports while that came on? Wasn't it when he started speaking up about certain things that the screw began to turn? So look, the different schools of thought, and this kind of social issues, different people will always have different issues. So you don't expect everyone to be on the same page, and that's always welcome. I mean, ideas have got to contend. So that's what's democratic about ideas contending in a democracy, I might add. So that's what you see. But you also get to see subsequently the House of Reps up in arms, 774,000 special jobs. Reps ask FG to suspend program. We knew that the last may not have been heard about that one. Remember a feisty scenario with that hearing, and now they are just speaking up on this one. Well, right beside that, COVID-19 vaccines must undergo local clinical trials, NMA. I know that several conspiracy theorists about this vaccine will still have their views. Perhaps they may hold them strongly, but who knows what people think about these vaccines when, if and when they do get to this part of the world. Who knows? And then, these images we spoke about just a while ago, but there's a title, there's a headline associated with that one. It's just right above this lead story. 8 dead as Port Harcourt residents rush for Christmas palliatives. So you see that? That is certainly not what you want to see if you intended it for good and then it turns out this way. Little details could have saved these lives, you never know. I was judged harshly before 2015 elections. Jonathan Oh dear, I'm not going to go into all these political calculations now for that one. Who knows? Well, you could be my guest if you want to. Let's flip to the back page, Vanguard Sports. Osimhen flies to Belgium for more treatment. Yeah, I hope it's sorted eventually. And then Wolves 2, Chelsea 1. NATO scores last gasp winner. I think West Brom and City played score draw. So you tend to wonder, look what's going on in that league. Or different strokes, different results, different scenarios just playing out. What many never really saw happening. But there you go. That is it with Vanguard this morning.
The Nigerian Tribune is next, and it leads with attacks on schools. NUT threatens to down tools, wants life insurance, hazard allowance for teachers. Zamfara closes schools, neighboring Katsina. Boko Haram claims responsibility for abduction of students. Nigeria completely unserious about human life. That's ascribed to Ezekwesili. That story is on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. So that the questions are there now. What Boko Haram claiming responsibility for the abduction, is it the same thing as Boko Haram being responsible as opposed to claiming responsibility? Well, I guess you'll find more details on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune, especially because when the army and other authorities have spoken about this, they have said that it was something that was done by bandits. So how come Boko Haram is coming into the picture now? Well, the stories are on the inside pages. Right above the nameplate, something that should concern every single one of us. If you see it right above the Nigerian in the Nigerian Tribune, SIM cards without NIN to be blocked in January. Is that calling for another re-registration or revalidation or updating of your data on your SIM card? Well, all of these is what you can find out on the inside pages, page 27 to be specific, particularly when Nigeria is already talking about centralizing our data management system. All of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. That story on the stampede in Port Harcourt is there. The reps halting implementation of the 774,000 jobs. Questions are there now about just what is happening here now. Is it politics that is at play, or is it something that needs to be done for people to have money in their pockets, at least for the 3 months that those 774,000 jobs are supposed to achieve? Well, all the details you'll find on the inside pages. IGP orders deployment of SWAT operatives nationwide. That's on page 26. Are they ready? Have we sorted their welfare, the issue of their welfare out? Well, more needs to be told to people so that, confidence can be assured that indeed there is nothing to worry about. The picture you see on the front page right there is men of the intelligence response team of the Nigeria Police, led by Abba Kyari, arriving at the GSSS Kankara on a rescue mission of the abducted boys on Tuesday. The back page has sports. Joshua once gave me a good beating, ascribed to Fury. More details you'll find on the back page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Let's leave it there for the paper today.
Well. Take a look at Daily Independent next. Katsina attack. Confusion as bandits. Boko Haram claim schoolboys abductions. Zamfara, Jigawa close schools over fear of bandit attack. Reps blame lack of coordination synergy among security agencies. Say Boko Haram achieving aim of eradicating Western education. And so you may ask, okay, so what is being done about that? But yeah, that's what you see right there. Judges of the Federal High Court during the 2020-2021 legal year and Judges Conference in Abuja on Tuesday. And sometimes you just wonder, what is all this news about if the CJN has contracted COVID or not, and then a press statement that was initially issued, eventually retracted. And so it just left so many questions being asked about. What about interviews that several dailies have credited to one of the judges who said certain things on tape? Well, who knows? And you would have thought that disclosure might help in a lot of ways, but who knows? I guess time. Time does a lot of things to different things. So time will reveal so many things moving forward. And then, yes, this equally features here. Look at that. That's at the bottom strip of the paper here. FG to block SIM cards not matched with NIN by December 30. Well, first you need to ask yourself, look, can the telcos handle the traffic that this will cause as a result of this timing? So this will definitely cause a lot of panic. And so people will want to be sure that they are in order so as not to be blocked. And secondly, we just spoke about COVID, how there needs to be social distancing and people conduct themselves. But I can tell you for free that when this traffic, when this bombardment of telcos happen, you just may not see any of such social distancing. It may be relegated to the background because they want to get themselves, to be sure they're on the right page. And besides, how many people even have this name? Didn't Jam the other day say, look, after they tried it and said, well, it's really difficult. I think the house waded in and said, Jam, you need to suspend this matter. How many Nigerians have got this name? And so, look, I don't know how some of these policies, are fashioned out and put out there. But by December 30, the consequences of this will be far much more than we think at the moment. Because the timing, how many days to December 30? Can people even get the name even if they tried? So what about those who've been trying for years and still don't have the name? Is it any fault of theirs? Are you going to punish them for quote unquote their inability to get it, which is no fault? Maybe then I didn't look. There's just so much, but it's up to you to go ahead and check that out right there, so you get to see that as well. Reps ask Buhari to suspend 774,000 jobs, reinstate NDEDG. Who knows what next steps they will take, because the president has already spoken on that one. So will this happen? I guess time will tell. Oh there, look at this. Uptrend in food prices pushes November inflation to 14.89%. Encourage food security, end insecurity. Analysts tell FG. Look, what else haven't the analysts said about what needs to be done to ensure food security? But, well, I don't know. That's what you see. But speaking about security or insecurity, NAS will continue to engage Buhari over insecurities, ascribed to Senate President. So, yeah, take a look at that. After Nigeria to become petroleum products refining hub. Well, about this after. There are just so many questions about it. Are we really ready? Do we have an advantage? Can we really achieve much when we don't have stable power supply compared to other countries in Africa that have got that? Wouldn't they be at a huge advantage in terms of this after? Look, there's several questions about this, but that's Daily Independent anyway.
Let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Opens with COVID-19, borders closure, others jack up inflation in Nigeria. Well, akin to what you mentioned earlier, Chamberlain, the story you'll find on the inside page is page 2 to be specific. Insecurity. Senators berate Buhari over insecurity and others. Find the details of that on page 5. Kidnapping. Boko Haram claims responsibility for kidnapping hundreds of boys in Katsina. Stories on page 2. And on the stock exchange, NSE market capitalization inches higher by 199 billion naira. The editorial of the Daily Times, as you can see right above the nameplate, is about which direction for police reforms. Is the SWAT deployment that we saw on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune anything to consider in that? You'll find the details on the editorial page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
We'll take a look at Daily Trust next. Katsina abduction. Shekau may ask for prisoner swap ransom, ascribed to experts. Don't let the boys to be turned terrorists. Mixed reactions in Kankara, 10 schools closed in Zamfara. FG, military silent on Boko Haram claim. Education under siege, Amnesty, ACF, and reps. So that all of those ascribed to them. And then my biggest agony in life, woman whose grandson were abducted. So the humans, people's children. So naturally this will follow. Row over CJN's health status continues to make the rounds. Rumor of mass defection persists as Kano Assembly gets new leaders. Well, definitely you've not heard the last of that one, I tell you. But that's Daily Trust, Ayo.
Blueprint newspaper is next, and it says, leads with this one, outrage over Kankara abduction, presidency not an award. Let's stop grandstanding. That's on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. That's also subscribed to the Senate. Threatens to stop 2021 budget proposal. That'll be interesting. Dig deeper into abduction. APC tasks security agencies. Chikau takes responsibility. Says we kidnapped 523 students. Schools shut in Zamfara and Jigawa. We're tired of complaining over insecurity. That's what you find as lead story on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. Leads you to page 6 where you'll find the story. COVID-19 uncertainty over CGN status as Kaduna shuts schools. That's it right there on the front page of Blueprint newspaper today.
And then The Guardian. Banks sacked 7,957 in 9 months. But wait a minute. I thought the banks were declaring profits all the while. During the pandemic and even when several companies were declaring losses. Am I missing something? Did something happen while I was away? But look at the writers. Let me read them. Human capital loss looms. I beg your pardon. Human capital crisis looms. 42% of contract staff make payroll. Operators grappling with skill inadequacy. Planned competence. I'll go again. Planned competence tests not triggered by noticeable gap. CBN. From a record, only one bank retrenched, says Nubifie. Okay. Well, the back and forth because you won that. So with all that huge profit, why then this? Okay, well, I guess you read it and put it in proper context. Senators threaten impeachment. Budget delay to force security action. Okay, this is senators, maybe not Senate. Reps demand implementation of Safe Schools Declaration. Zamfara closes boarding schools to avert crisis, to avert attacks. PDP condemns Buhari's visit to cattle ranch. Sultan seeks greater commitment from FG governors. So it is all there for you to go ahead and check that out. So there you go. That is The Guardian, which ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
The wind blows. A chilly reminder of what happened here a few days ago. Over 300 students were seized from the government science secondary school Kankara in Katsina State. Classroom dorms left in a state of hurried confusion. Residents, mostly parents, still linger around the school gate, hoping for relieving news. They have vowed not to leave until then.
Shabi then said they will bring 9 o'clock this morning. They no bring any children.
Okay, the 17th they said they could bring them.
Hey, and they no bring anything. Then say 9 don't pass, 10, 11, 12. They no bring anything. Yenzu 1 don't pass, safe. They no see anything.
Some of the students, however, were able to escape from their captors. One of them is 13-year-old Khalid Mani. His father is gladdened by his return. He says that other parents experience the same feeling of joy.
I feel happy the way I saw my son, but I'm not happy the way some of the people they are not around of date.
17 other students are reported to have earlier escaped. With the search intensifying by security agents, the families of the remaining students in captivity wait anxiously for the safe return of their children.
All right, welcome back. So, yes, we're keeping our focus on that unfortunate incident about those when the governor of Katsina State said that, from the record, 330 schoolboys from the government secondary school. But I've got two gentlemen, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, here to weigh in on the subject matter. Muhammad Ibrahim is a retired staff officer from DSS, and then you also have Sheyi Adita, who's a former operative of the same DSS. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, this scenario left a lot of people, of course, there'll be different perspectives. Many would have said, how could this have happened? Didn't we see it coming, given all the resources we have? Why? So many questions, much more than the answers out there. But Trey, you've been looking into this kind of matter. You've also kept tabs. So from your perspective, what do you see playing out here?
Well, it is something that is expected, and considering the way security is, or let me say the spread of insecurity in the northern part of Nigeria, is a disaster that is waiting to happen. With the way things are presently, and that's the reason why you see governors closing schools, because one, we are having too much of insecurity in our hands, and our ability to be able to, address this issue is been weakened every day, because as insecurity is growing, the manpower that we have to address this is not the development of such manpower is not commensurate with the level of challenges that we're having. It's important that we first of all situate the cause of this particular incident. There was an attack by bandits in the community, and some of the bandits were killed. They came back for a retaliatory attack that night, and they were repelled, because I heard somewhere where some people were saying that they were taken during broad daylight. No, they were actually repelled. It was in the process of they exiting the Kankara community. That was when they went into the school and they marched those children out. And contrary to the what Shekau is trying to portray yesterday, this is not a Boko Haram-led operation. It was entirely a bandit. But there's this handshake between bandits and Boko Haram of recent that we've seen, where they carry out... How recent? Very recent, where they carry out kidnapping and they try to trade off their captives to Boko Haram. We've seen that happening in Maduguri, Yobe, on several occasions, when after kidnapping people for ransom, and it's whether there are some high-profile people there, they transfer them to Boko Haram, and that's part of some of the agreements they have with this. And if you look at the American that was kidnapped, America had to rescue him because they discovered that there was a trade-off about to happen. So they knew
between bandits and Boko Haram.
Yeah, and if they should allow that, the moment the captive get into the hand of ISWAP or Boko Haram, then it becomes very difficult for them to rescue.
Can we say for sure that these bandits, as it were, are not elements of Boko Haram?
Yeah, you see, these are soldiers of fortune. They've been in this business for long. If you look at most of the commanders fighting for both Jazz, Shekaram, Jazz faction and the ISWAP, they are largely soldiers of fortune. They were recruited because of their background, and they are given position of commanders. Some of them fell apart. Some of them decided to go on their own. We've seen lots of infighting within Boko Haram, some commanders falling out, and they try to create their own camp or to move into banditry. So this particular situation, because from what we gathered, they were actually negotiating with government. At the point, they were talking directly with the families of the kids, and at the same time, they were actually talking to Shekau faction and also ISWAP. So apparently, one particular group succeeded in outbidding the other in the process of this, and that's why you saw Shekau came out yesterday with that audio to say that our brothers are the one behind it. So if you read in between, like it's associated with the people that did it, because there have been agreement between, and that's what makes this situation a very precarious one right now. If you look at what happened in 2014 February, 59 students of Buniyadi government secondary schools were killed, and with Shekau, you can't predict what can happen with captives once it is now in its custody. So what the implication of this is that the negotiation is no longer going to be with the identified bandit leaders. There is one guy, I remember his name now, that is believed to be leading the bandits. It's no longer negotiation with him now. It's now going to be negotiation with Shekau now. And we know what happened with the Dapchi girls negotiation, the Shupot girls negotiation. Is not going to be a tea party for Nigeria.
So many follow-ups to do on that one, but let me bring in Mr. Ibrahim on this one. Look, what's your assessment of what you've seen?
Thank you very much. The whole story is nothing but inefficiency of the setup of the insecurity we have in this country. The kidnapped boys from Katsina may not likely be totally recovered.
They may not
likely be totally saved.
Why did you say so?
From the story, the military noticed they were present when these boys are being moved. And to attack, that's when they jeopardized saving some of these children. Because in the process, the fire exchange may be affected. And these bandits, they will purposely and intentionally use them to protect themselves too in the cause. So that's why there are going to be problems. So what we need to is serious intelligence gatherings, and that is where we need to use the community. Because I was surprised that the bandit came. They had experience of before returning to retaliate. That means that community, they are in the knowing. They are in the knowing. And where did they take? The road they took, the people that have seen them, they must have been in connection with some of these people. Because, you see, the bandits also, they have their own intelligence networks. Before going to do carry out certain operation, they will have their own Reiki operation to know where there are problems, because they know Nigeria security agencies are everywhere.
But if I could just jump in, pardon me, I hope I don't interrupt your train of thought. When you say that community are in the knowing, it may not come across perhaps the way you want to put it, because if you look at the scenario, the environment, there have been several times where some persons tried to inform security operatives of what was going on, and they were slaughtered. So do the people have the confidence to actually call on security agencies? And when they do call them, have they been responding? So to what extent can you say they are in the knowing and then this could have happened?
Our communication gap, the communication gap is what we need to improve upon. The communication gap we need to improve upon. And again, this is where we are clamoring for state policy. If we have the development of community policy, they will be in charge of these problems.
So does this suggest that this is a failure of perhaps your former outfit, State's Security Service?
No.
Intelligence failure?
No, that's not. It's not intelligence. You see, intelligence is something that when it is given to the needies, there are protocols of displaying intelligence. Intelligence may be given to some people that they will not use it at the right time or use it to the wrong place.
But in this particular case, can we say, what's your assessment? Do you think that there was intelligence about this matter? Because I appear to have got many people
there should be intelligence about, because we have people working everywhere in every local government. They know what is going on. The intelligence communication must have been going on. And what brings most about this thing is that the security personnel are overstressed. If you look at it, you need to improve upon by making more recruitment, so that so that be able to cover what needs to be covered. That is exactly what is happening. Most of our security apparatus are very, very inadequate. Then the assistance of community police to assist the security agencies, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, gentlemen, let me bring in my colleague Ayo. He's got some questions for you as well. Ayo, go ahead.
Thank you. Let me begin from where you stopped, Chamberlain, with Mr. Ibrahim. First, let's begin with the fact of the information that you talked about, gathering intelligence information and giving it to people. When you say that the communities are aware and there was no way they could have done anything, clearly what you're saying is that there is intelligence information that there is some level of collaboration between the bandits in some cases and the communities, and in some other cases, some people have said that the Boko Haram also have a kind of leash on certain communities, for which reason they have carried out reprisal attacks for them giving information to security operatives. For how long have we known this? And which security agency of government should have done something about it that, in your opinion, wasn't able to do anything about it?
There's an understanding amongst both of them, so Shay wants to respond to it.
Okay, so it's important for us to understand the fact that this is not a new situation or development in the area. Sometime last year, Amnesty was given to some of these bandits. And then because the activities of these bandits are well known within the area, we should not forget the fact that the Kankara community is a border town. So it borders Zamfara. And Zamfara is the haven where most of all these bandits. And then the fact that the Zamfara government is operating on an agreement, from some sort of agreement with the bandits in terms of amnesty, while after the fallout of the initial amnesty program in Katsina State, the Katsina government now said is no longer doing amnesty. So they have a kind of a safe haven in Zamfara to operate. Now the leader of this group is one person identified to be someone called Daudawa. Is from
Awalum
Daudawa. From Daudawa village in the Faskari local government in Katsina. And this is a local. It's believed to be supported by one Menore and another guy. I will also remember his name. So these guys are local people that are notorious, have been declared wanted in Katsina, and the activities has been so broad around that area. So if you look at the security structure on ground, the expanse of land that the security structure on ground are expected to cover, and the stretch of the forest belts right from Niger State, Zamfara, all the way into Nigerian Republic is so massive, and the vegetative cover is so broad that even area surveillance is a lot difficult. And that's the reason why the moment they enter into this forest belt, it's always very difficult. And we've seen that the military have lost so many soldiers in the process of going after these people inside the forest. So it always requires well planned security operations at times to neutralize some of their operation. So are the security agencies aware that these guys are operating? Yes. Are they doing something? Yes. What they are doing, is it enough to counter the insecurity around that area? The answer is no, because they don't have enough facility on ground, because they are already stretched out.
Just one moment,
virtually no
if you
state in
can hear
Nigeria.
me. If you can hear me, Mr. Adetayo, just one moment. What you are saying here is sounding a little like we're helpless. And the question that I asked the other time is about the fact that we have this information, and clearly from some of the information that you're giving us right now, we have the information. As a matter of fact, you have mentioned specific names. So we know these people. Now, whose responsibility is it to go after these people? Most of the time when we're talking about security, our security challenges, we're talking about the army, we're talking about the police. But you know as well as I do that these are not the only two agencies of government in charge of security. There is also the belief out there that the DSS, which agency is also sometimes armed, could have operationalized some of the intelligence that they gather, and we don't hear much of that. We only hear about the police, we only hear about the army. And just as you are saying right now, everybody believes that they are overstretched. So from what you are saying, given all the information that is available to us, the forest belt and all those things, shouldn't some strategic intervention have helped us to intervene to make sure this doesn't happen in the first place?
Okay, so thank you very much. The names you've had is the same way we've had names of Shekau. We've had several names, and we know the leader of this Boko Haram faction is this, and they were yet to be able to nab these guys. That speaks volume as to how coordinated the enemy that the country is fighting are. And we should forget that this is an asymmetric warfare. It's not a conventional warfare where you have a standing army and you are going after a standing army. And in asymmetric warfare, usually the enemy has advantage of initiative when attacking, and because you are left with the option of most times to protect. In terms of issue of intelligence, okay, you said that we heard so much about the military, about the police, and then you don't hear much about the DSS. The truth is that you are not expected to hear about them. Their duty, their responsibility is to gather intelligence. Their intelligence is for end users. They have their specific end user depending on the nature of the intelligence at hand, and the people that are responsible for the direct counter insurgency as we have now are the military and the police. So except the military comes out and the police comes out to say, okay, from the DSS, they are not getting enough. And we shouldn't forget the fact that in the military, there is the Defense Intelligence Service. They are the intelligence component of the military. And also each of the military arm, like the Nigerian Army has the Nigerian Army Intelligence Corps, NAIC. They have the Nigerian Air Intelligence Corps, and then the Naval Intelligence are there. All these components are expected to take responsibility of the intelligence that is needed for their military operations. So how much have they been able also to gather or to be able to provide? We can only get to know our level of deficiency if the leadership of the military and the police are able to come out to say, okay, we are not getting enough intelligence from the DSS or from the intelligence components of the Nigerian military. so to speak. So, but we need to understand this. It is likely, as I've said even here, I mean about 2 weeks ago on Sunrise, that you see, we need to move away from our fixation with quick wins. We've always, and it's common with politicians. We want quick wins so that people can easily, praising us to say, oh, you've done this, you've done that. But we really need to sit down and have a better understanding of what we have at hand. This is a war we cannot win overnight. We need a strategic plan that will address both short-term and long-term.
Mr. Yeah. On that same matter, and thank you for bringing it up because I was going to go there next, which is the fact that we are wont to rush for the quick wins. Again, let me reiterate what we all know. The fact that we have at least 9 security agencies that are supposed to deal with several different things. Proliferation of arms wouldn't be an issue in Nigeria if we had an effective or actioned intelligence, to the customs. Immigration, we wouldn't have the kind of situation where we had on our hands, where the governor of Kano State was telling us that a good number of the Almajiris in the state were from outside of Nigeria. So if that agency of government was doing their thing. So talking about not just looking for quick wins, but mitigating, ensuring that these security vulnerabilities that we have allowed for so long do not continue. How do we strengthen? What are the areas of life we need to pay attention to ensure that we don't go there? Because this is what we are dealing with today. Who knows what we're going to deal with tomorrow?
The challenge here, the challenge is likely our inability to address the root causes. There is huge poverty in Nigeria, and that is largely concentrated in the north. There is porous border. Our border is very, very porous. We don't have, some natural landmark that could help us to be able to navigate around our borders to protect it. It's just large expanse of land. Even if you put the whole customs personnel along the fringes of the Nigerian northern border, they will not be able to protect it. That means that we need much more. We have high illiteracy rates in the northern part of Nigeria, and then there is corruption in government. And you see, if you put all those things together, there's no country that is going to have, or that is having what I've put together here, that would not experience what we're experiencing now. It's not about the amount of intelligence. You can have the intelligence and put the intelligence there, but when the reality on ground cannot even enable you to be able to put the mitigating, actions in place. Some actions will require even long-term planning and investment for you to be able to tackle them.
Mr. Prime, when you say that, the military saw the boys, how they were living, but they couldn't do anything because they didn't want any casualty. How were they moved? There were reports that they walked the boys. So was it that the military couldn't follow through intelligently? Is it that they couldn't strategize?
That's surprising. In actual fact.
No, but from your account, how were the boys moved? Did they actually walk them to the bushes?
They must have used vehicles to transport them, and when they get to where they move them on the foot. They line them up. They must have done that, because that is the usual way this thing usually happens.
But if you're going to move, according to the governor, 333 boys through vehicles, the military were helpless all through the time?
That is surprising, that where those vehicles came from, the route they took to that place to get those 333 from. That's why I'm trying to tell you that some community must have been in the knowledge of what was going on. And as my colleague has rightly said, if everybody played their role, this wouldn't have happened.
Does that suggest you're blaming the community on this one?
Community are in the knowing. Community cannot do without seeing all these.
But the military, you said the military knew as well. So doesn't that invalidate what the community knew, since the military was there and they saw what was happening?
When this action was happening, the reports we had, the military saw them. with the situation, the military are incapacitated.
Wow.
The information they needed couldn't get to them at the right time. And you know, when such populations are being moved, and with this,
Okay.
it's very difficult to rescue them.
You wanted to say something?
Okay, Chamberlain, we actually need to be realistic here, because there are some things that you can't help. From the information available, they got to the school, it was at night, and they mashed these children, these schoolboys, and because they were walking on the road, it gave the security agencies ample time to call for reinforcement, enforce government, and here surveillance was deployed. And that was how they were able to track them. But remember that they walked them through the night, and then here surveillance is not something that is all that easy, because you need to scan through vast area of land at night. But they were able to track them. But mind you, there is no how. I don't see any government that will want to take such collateral damage, that you deploy here power to deploy assaults on kidnappers that are having the hostages with them.
Till when they were, as you said, negotiating with different factions of Boko Haram?
There's nothing you can do. This is reality. If you see, even when you see a state situation and there is a standoff, you just have to negotiate your way. Except if it's somewhere that you have advantage of environment. In this case, there's no advantage of environment. They were in the forest. They are able to locate that this is where these people are. They have the kids with them, but they cannot strike. There is no, we're dealing with people that if you move closer, what if they start killing the boys? What will government do?
It's going to be difficult for Nigerians to accept that there's nothing anybody can do.
Buniyadi case is a case in mind.
Okay.
But when they slaughtered 59 boys,
okay, well, those
guys never had the opportunity.
We'll be back to shed more light, to try to understand what actually happened and what can be done, other than nothing can be done about this thing. Because how do you accept that? Okay, that's when we'll come back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Bring back our boys.
Another day, another motion in the Senate on insecurity in the country. This time is the abduction of more than 300 schoolboys from Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, Katsina State, on Friday, 11th December 2020. Boko Haram has claimed responsibility for the attack, which was executed in a manner reminiscent of the abduction of the Dapchi and Chibok schoolgirls.
That media reports about this deadly incident indicate that the attackers stormed the school premises and engaged government security agents in a fierce gun battle, forcing hundreds of students to flee and hide in the surrounding forest, while others were reportedly abducted by government.
About 2 weeks ago, the Senate debated the gruesome killings of rice farmers in Zabamari, Borno State, and asked President Buhari to sack the service chiefs. President Buhari is yet to yield to these demands by Parliament, and there appears to be a sense of helplessness by these senators.
Most of us are becoming disenchanted and discouraged. Since Friday, over 300 children had been moved. Then we have security people who are just collecting money and building big houses in Abuja. And then we say that we can only pay lip service. And then we say we are representing the people who are not representing them.
The worst part of this situation is that nobody is talking to us. We're just there as if we're talking rubbish. 333 boys. That's the future of Nigeria. That's the entire two chambers put together. Mr. President, the time has come for us to take drastic action. One of them is that we can't be budgeting for dead people. If we decide that government must do something before we will produce the budget, I am sure they will be up and doing.
This Senate, and indeed the National Assembly, like I said before, should never get tired. Should never get tired. Because imagine we don't discuss these issues. What else can we do? So what we need to do is to look at the architectural design of the security system in the country.
Bothered by President Buhari's unwillingness to implement previous resolutions on insecurity, lawmakers discard the recommendation to invite the service chiefs, the Inspector General of Police and Director General of the Department of State Service. Senators have frequently criticized President Buhari for refusing to execute his recommendations on insecurity, one of which is to sack the heads of security organizations in the country and replace them with new hands and fresh ideas. Beyond repeatedly making these demands, the upper chamber appears to be unwilling to explore other avenues of getting President Buhari to yield to their demands. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, gentlemen, in trying to understand these things, we're equally looking at how do we ensure this kind of scenario doesn't happen again, because it's not the first or second. But when you made reference to the bandits leader, the Daudawa Awalu person, well, we also understand that there's word that, yes, he's from Faskari local government, as you said, but some say that he lives in Zamfara.
Yeah.
So does that then mean that the understanding that Zamfara government had with those the amnesty with some of those people, can we say is really working if he's still carrying out this kind of activity?
Well, this shows that it's not the best option, and it also shows that is not working. He's known to be living in a village called Zubulu, or so, and that is where 17 of those that escaped yesterday, that were recovered yesterday, also ran away from. And the truth here is that we are not actually adopting the right approach to this. We should not be learning from our mistakes all the time. We should also try to avoid actions that could lead to mistakes that will be so costly like this. There should be a national or coordinated action plan that will define how states should respond. Our response should be a collective one. Zamfara should not be adopting a process that is different from that of Katsina, and the Katsina adopting one that is different from that of Sokoto, because these states are sharing boundaries. So it means that whatever is happening to this state will definitely affect this. And that's why you see that Zamfara governor decided to close schools that are the bordering communities, to all these states, because they feel that
the share borders
at Zamfara and other states. So those are the challenges that we're having. And earlier on, when we were talking about why are we helpless, we should not forget what happened in 2011 when European engineers were kidnapped and they were taken to a community in Sokoto, and there was an attempt to, after months of intelligence assessments and conversation between Nigerian government and the foreign governments, that those people were they are citizens of those countries, and eventually the British decided to take the bull by the horn by sending the boat squad. Immediately, it was a coordinated offensive that was launched, but it turned out bad, because those people had a standing order that the moment you see any offensive being launched at you, kill, execute the victims or the hostages immediately, and that was what happened. They killed them. It was a bad outcome at the end of the day. It's important that we understand, because I saw the way Nigerians were applauding the rescue of the American and saying that, oh, Nigerian government. The truth is that we're talking about one person. It is easier for you to launch such an offensive if you are dealing with one person. Donald Trump will not launch such an offensive in this situation. Not in Chibok girls' situation, not in Dapchi, not in this Kankara boys' situation, because the collateral damage will be monumental. And I'm not sure any government will want to carry such, political and moral burden of launching an offensive and several of young boys are killed in the process. So the best approach is for us to study the situation carefully, and we are currently more or less like, you know, we are the mercy of.
But you know, let me bring in Mr. Ibrahim. When you hear that the leader of this gang lives, yes, he's from Katsina, but lives in Zamfara, and then there's an amnesty that's supposed to have been given. They're supposed to have an understanding with them, and this is still happening. So when governments grant amnesty to certain persons, what role does, in this case, your former outfits, the DSS, play? Do they advise them what to do? How should they proceed? Because if you say you have an understanding, and this leader happens to be one of those quote-unquote beneficiaries, assuming he's one of them, so isn't that a failure still of at least intelligence at some point?
I will say something now. You see, giving amnesty to those insurgency when the insurgency are still active, I don't think it's a proper idea. But they are still active. And this one that came out said that, oh, we surrender. We won't do it again. And government embrace them and teach them and try to radicalize them.
While you were in service, were you aware that the agency advised the security authorities or government, this is not a good idea? Did that ever happen?
You know, the process of passing intelligence is very, very discreet. That at your level, you do your own, but at your upper level, they do add or subtract.
Okay, but given your decades of experience.
I'm not giving my own experience.
No, what I'm saying is, given your wealth of knowledge and experience in service, while you were in service, do you think that the agency may have advised them, look, if they're still active, this may not be good?
Of course, I believe such will happen, because we have seen what is happening now. How can you give amnesty to somebody that said when they are still inactive? And by giving them amnesty, they will come back. Yes, they will embrace whatever you give them, whatever you promise them. But you can't stop them from communicating with their people that are still in the dungeon, in the bush.
So there could be double agents in this case?
That's exactly what is happening. Because I have the opportunity to be in position of counter-terrorism. As far as Lagos State is concerned. You don't allow those BHs to reside in Lagos. We don't. The moment they are, because we have our own networks. The moment they are in Lagos, they were picked up and taken away. So that we have our safety homes. Now, the issue of giving them amnesty, that's, I mean, to me, it's unaccessible.
Now, about this ransom now, because remember that the governor did say that they were in touch with the bandits. And now, if they have given Shekal's comments, where does that leave the government now? Are they still going to be negotiating with the bandits, or should they want now? What is government? What are the chances? What are the options?
You see, these people have been fighting the Nigerian government for several years now. So, and they've carried this out several times. So they already understand the government playbook. We've had the Chibok girls. They know how government responded. We've had the Dapchi girls. They know how government responded. And several others, like they kidnapped some police officers and the rest of recent as well. So they understand the way we respond. So, and this is, lots, psychological warfare.
Does that suggest that they know we will negotiate, we'll pay them ransom,
oh, definitely,
make money?
Definitely. You are dealing with smart guys. You're dealing with smart guys here. And you see, it's like, someone kidnap your sister. The person knows that definitely you want your sister back, you come and talk. You want to, in fact, you first of all keep quiet. They'll be expecting that they know that you will start praying that they should contact you. So at least you hear your sister's voice for proof of life to be assured that, okay, she's alive. So at that time, they have taken initiative. They're having the advantage. The ball is no longer in your court. So you are now at their mercy. And that's what Shekau is trying to do now. All those people are doing now. They want to sustain the initiative. They want to be, to be at the advantage right now. So right now, government has no other option than to, because the more politically, it's not looking good for the government. And then also morally, they have to consider several actions that they will take. And then back to the question you asked about the issue of intelligence. You see, intelligent tradecraft is a very complex, very complex craft. It's not something that you can say 1 + 1 = 2. The fact that if intelligence agency says that, okay, go ahead with this, might not with intention because they are afraid. At times, you could decide to negotiate with somebody, bring the person in, turn the person might go back there and then work for you. The person might as well, because those people too are working using intelligence tradecraft too. They can decide to turn the person again. You understand what I'm saying now? Become a double agent. So you see, intelligence business is a complex business, and when they try to advise, they put all the options on the table and say, if you take this option, this is the likely outcome. If you take this option, this is likely outcome. You might decide to take this option. It will give you 1, 2, 3 and an advantage. If you take this option, it might look bad, but on the long run, it might help you. It's left for the political actor or the person that will take the decision to say, okay, which is the direction that we're taking at a particular point in time.
You were going to say something?
Yeah. From what Syria said, you see, look at the issue at hand. The government need to brazen up the security apparatus. That's me to protect, because these people, like my colleague has already said, the Shekau issues, they are, when you see them doing this kind of things, they are running off finance, and what all they are doing is they need finance, and that's why you see them going into kidnappings, go into robberies. No, robbery where they cannot kidnap, they go into robbery. So they need finance, and that is exactly what is going on now. Because, as he said, the discussion will take place, and we have to find a way to dance to their tunes. Now, how do we do it? Because when they have given what they wanted, they will come again somewhere else. And that is when we have to find a way of blocking it completely.
Okay, let me bring in Ayo again. Ayo, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Ibrahim, this one is for you specifically. And it borders on something that you said the other time about the likelihood of us not being able to fully bring these boys back home. And that's definitely very, very troubling. And you have also spoken to the fact that, giving amnesty, for the states to be giving amnesty to known bandits or criminals isn't the strategy that should work. So I want to ask you, at the level of the state governors, what kind of information is available to them? Because I believe that if they knew the consequences of not dialoguing with the criminals or with the kidnappers, as in the case of Katsina State, or giving amnesty to bandits or some of these elements, as in the case that you have mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure that they would have acted differently if they knew that the consequences would be dire in the long run. So what kind of information is available to the governors which sometimes informs the decisions that they have to take?
You see, the government is doing all they could, but with the situation on ground, with these boys, I don't think it's going to be easy to bring them back in such a way that we expected. You see, you look at what I've said earlier, the population of the security agents and our operation techniques, that we need to double up our operation techniques in such a way that more intelligence and advice, and there's no way that government will not carry out this negotiation. In the case of negotiations, the government should not do everything those insurgents want, because by doing it, they planning again. This thing happened in Katsina State. The next time you feel that it's happening somewhere in another state, because the attention, when you know that the government, our attention is now in Katsina and Zamfara State. Then when we are not paying attention, that's why I say all the other states in the north, not only in the north, in the southern part, they should wake up to brace up the security apparatus of their state, so that this will not happen again.
But what do we then do? Because I mean, some of your earlier information indicated that the leader, he's not a Fulani herdsman, but he works with them. Yeah. What information do you have on that?
Okay, just that's what part of what we're able to, get as to the background of Daudawa, Awulum Daudawa, that is from Katsina, and not everybody from Northeast are Fulani. There are Hausas and some other minority tribes that are also there. But likely he has been working with this the Fulani bandits for a long time. Also, there's Dankarami and Menore. Those are the three major names.
So is Dankarami the one demanding that they release their gang members who were abducted in different cells?
Yes, 6. I think he demanded for six particular individuals that should be released. So that was at the time that they were having that negotiation before the story changed, and we had Shekau now announcing that is the one calling the shots. So which has changed the whole scenario.
But any idea where the boys are now?
Well, if they've not been moved overnight, because time is running out for the boys in terms of being able to secure them or being able to corner these guys to a particular location. So I think the last information that we had was they are somewhere in one Motu primary school in one village. I think I forgot to
primary school. So it's likely that I think Nigerian security agencies.
It's around that Zamfara axis.
Surrounding that place.
But let's be honest and be truthful here. That forest belt extends all the way into Nigerian Republic. It's possible for one to move in within that forest belt all the way to Nigerian Republic, difficult for him or her to be detected through air surveillance. It's a large space. So even for Nigerian security forces to be able to still manage, to keep them there, it shows that so much effort, is being put in place. But the truth here is that how much of advantage do they have? They have limited advantage in terms of being able to, hold these guys and they're being able to get. But I am hoping, I'm not losing hope that something could happen. Good news could be broken any moment from now. But honestly, how we got here, we shouldn't forget that it wasn't all bed of roses, even for governors who decide to adopt, having a pact with the bandit. At that time, villagers were being killed.
Who knows if they will review that now in the light of what has happened. But we have to keep hope alive as much as we can, because the parents...
Something favorably will happen.
That's a very good place to let it go then. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Mohammed Ibrahim is a former principal staff officer of State Service, and then you also have Sheyi Adetayo, who himself also former operative of the State Service. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you.
We will be back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Well, Professor Ken Ife joins us this morning to look at the state of Nigeria's economy. I mean, you have heard tons of things. On the one hand, is that issue of recession that we're dealing with. And a good number of economists like himself who weigh in on it believe that, hey, we have never really left recession. We just were walking on the brink of it. And now that we are in the recession, -2 or -3 or thereabout as at the last time, how far will we go away from recession in the first quarter, from what the federal government has been saying? Professor Ken Ife, macroeconomic policy analyst, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
So this is what we have on our hands now, and so many issues. A good number of states, 30 states according to the NBS, they were not able to attract any investment in their states in the past 9 months. The NBS inflation has risen to almost 15%. Budget says 8 states don't have enough for recurrent expenditure. IGR, generating IGR in a good number of states is a mirage, and so many other issues that we are contending with, plus a recession. And the federal government is hopeful that within the first quarter, we're going to get out of it. First of all, what are we dealing with?
We're dealing with a situation where many things that could have gone wrong just went wrong. And part of it is not really down to us. It all began, this particular round began with the recession. And if you look at capital importation, 2018 we did 17 billion. 2019 we did 24 billion. This year we'll be lucky if we do 10 billion. We'll be very, very lucky. And if you break it down, in the first quarter before COVID came, we did over 5 billion, 5.8. Then the second quarter, third quarter, just 1.5, 1.4. So you could see that it is COVID.
Yeah.
And when you disaggregate the figure, you would even see more things going on in there. So we are hostage to those crises stipulated. But then the country is not resting on this, so they're fighting. Fiscal authorities are fighting, monetary authorities are fighting. But the good news, unlike 2016, was that there's a better coordination between the monetary and fiscal policy. But people need to understand some of the things that you have just mentioned. We're taking $1.5 billion loan from World Bank
on certain conditions that we need to make clear. But
I know.
We'll explain
come to that.
We'll explain a little more of that when we return from this break. So please stay with us. Well, Dr. Bongo Adi also joins in this conversation. He is an economist and he is a senior lecturer at the Lagos Business School. Thank you, Dr. Adi, for joining us this morning. You may have heard my first question to Professor Ife here. Just what are we dealing with? Because it'll seem like people are at a loss to what is happening. No cash at hand for many people. And we hear that the macroeconomic issues drive the microeconomic issues, and which trickles down all the way to the common man. So with this recession and these many other economic indices, just what are we dealing with?
Thank you very much. I think Prof is quite in order. He pointed it out clearly that this kind of systemic or global issue, especially stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic, the best of countries in terms of macroeconomic management have not found it easy to deal with all this. So, and then coming back home here, so we are also managing it the best we can. As Prof said, we are fighting it. Because if you look at the indicators, there seems to be some kind of discrepancy as well, some kind of sort of misalignment in the narratives. I don't know if you're looking at, looking into Nigeria from our side, you will be having a different signal from what's stemming from the social dimension in the country. So there's that, this juncture. Okay, so from the outside, you will see that as at 2019, leading up to 2020, Nigeria remained, among the strongest countries in Africa when you look at the indices of financial strength. If you're looking at the public debt, if you're looking at our foreign debt, reserve cover as well, Nigeria was number 14 among about 120 or so emerging markets. So the best in Africa. And then what was in the red is the cost of borrowing, which has been very high. But if you look at those other indicators of financial strength or financial health, Nigeria was actually doing well. And then again, recent publications and research by Bloomberg showed that Nigerian stock markets outperformed the global average, okay, even during this pandemic. And then we've seen some Nigerian corporates beating the world. Our information and communication, activity sector performed better than any other in the world. So at least we have some things that we can look back to. So which is the vivacity or the dynamism of the private sector in Nigeria. Then we also, the stock market, like as I said, outperformed the global average. So you see what is going there and there as well. So of course, some people may argue that the stock market currently is decoupled from the rest of the economy. But of course, we know that it's also a very powerful proxy to economic health. So, but then in the social dimension, it's a different thing altogether. So I think there is domestically, there is this general sweeping loss of confidence in governance, especially with these security threats coming from all nooks and crannies of the country. So that doesn't boost confidence. So if 30 of the 36 or so states are not attracting foreign direct investment, we do not need to look any further to what the source or the causes are. Okay, the spread of insecurity is just widespread.
I think we'll come to those details, Dr. Adi. If you don't mind me, butting in for just a moment. Gentlemen, I may be shuffling between the issues here, but there was something Dr. Adi said now that I think, catches my attention. So there are the economic issues, there are the health issues, there are the security issues, but then there are the social issues. And you said the other time that the macroeconomic issues drive the microeconomic issues, and down to the common man, the challenges are spending power is abysmal. And as far as they are concerned, there is nothing you will say that will make sense if the policies, the programs, the executions, the plans, the ideas and ideologies do not connect to a bank alert or cash at hand. Can you connect the dots?
Well, let's look at it let me connect it. If you look at GDP, which is the aggregate that looks at how economy performs, macroeconomic aggregate, we tend to look at it more from output. So, pump more money into the manufacturing sector so they can increase output, do that, look at agricultural output, industrial services, all of that. But when you look at the same GDP on the basis of consumption, you will find that household consumes 84%. They account for 84%. Government is only 5.7%. So what does that tell you? It tells you that whatever you do, you must make sure you protect or boost aggregate demand. Because you can produce anything you want to produce. If there's nobody with the resources to buy them, you are back to square one. So that's the balance there. So you can now see why government has to, especially the fiscal authority, have to make sure that they deliver resources to the level of the household. And you could see why CBN brought in 50 billion naira through the NISA microfinance to get out there and increased it under by demand to 1,100 billion, now 150 billion. So you see even at the money we are taking from World Bank, 750 of them is going to economic sustainability. You could see the household coming in there. You could see grants regime coming in there. And then you could see those poorest of the poor coming into there, because we need to prevent a collapse in aggregate demand. If that happens, it has a knock-on effect on output, and we're back to square one.
Well, there's so many issues to look at, but Dr. Adi, there's this thing said, we engaged the Director General of the Budget Office once, and he said that one way to get out of a recession is to spend your way out of a recession. Now, I'm very, very confused right now, and I'm sure a good number of people are. Already, debt burden is in excess of $34 million dollars. That's on the one hand. More than that is what we are owing. A good number, a good percentage of our budget in the region of 50-60% is used to service debts. Now, if we are going to spend our way out of a recession, spend our way out of a debt burden, spend our way out of the melee that we have found ourselves, how far into trouble will we get if we have to borrow more? Already there is a $1.5 billion loan, on the fringes, from the World Bank. How far more do we have to go? How much deeper into debt do we have to go to spend our way out of a recession?
Well, what you're speaking there actually is making allusion to the Keynesian aphorism that you spend your way out of a recession, given the paradox of thrift that usually happens when you have an economic downturn. People kind of stop spending money. Everybody has this trepidation about the future, so you just want to try to hang on to what you have. So if everybody does that, that actually leads to the collapse of aggregate demand, just as Prof said. So the only way out is for you to find ways to boost aggregate demand. And then in our own case, we have this double whammy of the pandemic and of course the collapse of global oil price, so which has damaged our revenue sources. So not just at the federal level, at the state level, so ability to mop up revenue has been whittled down. So that has created enormous stress everywhere you look. So the only way out seems to be, but it's not the only way out, to be for the government anyway, because of political considerations and social, because government has a different incentive from that of economics and economics. So is to borrow. Yes, how far can we go borrowing? The fact of the matter is that borrowing is not our problem. Actually, because if you look at the indices, the problem is that the cost of borrowing is quite high. Of course, the debt burden is ramping up, but we have to look at the prioritization in the sectors. Okay, so where is the money deployed? That is the most important question that we need to ask. So if the funds that are being borrowed, because the cases are made, okay, if they can be deployed to the right areas, sectors, and then the targeting is efficient such that those who are meant to get, Prof mentioned about 50 billion intervention and all of that. So, but the problem is at the end of the day, it may not trickle down to the targets, the right target. So if it doesn't happen, then we have a huge problem where these whole subsidies and all of that will continue to be frittered away by some political members of the society. So that's very challenging. So I don't think borrowing is much of a problem. But again, is that the only option left for government? Of course, no. Especially again, we look at the World Bank as part of the conditions they are given. Is that we need to intensify the reforms that have been started, and those reforms are directed towards getting the government out of production, and out of economic activities, out of distribution, okay, and allocation. So let the market decide, get the private sector. But at the same time, we know that the system has so much vulnerabilities, a lot of vulnerable population. We have, which we go from 15 million to 20 million people who are miserably poor. So those people need protection. So, but the problem is subsidies. The regime of subsidy has never helped them. So how do we work out a system, design a mechanism that will ensure that resources are directed to these people to actually, help them?
more of those issues, and it really is I don't know, I'm always having a burst brain here, but so many issues to raise about this, so little time. But Chamberlain, you want to ask a question as well?
Well, just looking at some of these efforts that were put in place to see how we can reduce this 14.89% inflation rate. Prof, let me ask you, we look at this focus on the loan. If you look at some of the 4 key areas of this loan, investing in human capital, promoting jobs and economic transformation and diversification, enhancing resilience, and strengthening the foundations of the public sector. I'm just wondering, look, all of these policies that we're working to put in place to ensure we get results, how much progress can we make if we don't have power supply, constant electricity supply?
Well, power is just one of the binding constraints. It accounts for at least 30% of the input costs, and 77% of manufacturers, members of Manufacturers Association who have been interviewed, say that is their biggest constraint. So you're right there. But I think I have been advising government for the last 6 years to take power to the mass market, so that we can sidetrack these shenanigans going on in the power configuration of DISCO and misalignments in our DISCO, GENCO, and TCN and all of that story. And I think you can see now that they have taken the bull by the horn when CBN says they are going to boost the GDP of the power sector by 7.5 trillion. And then they are now opening the vault to support solar-based solutions, mini-grids and all of that. Now that is what has been crying for help and support. And the story is pathetic. It's really pathetic because if you consider Nigeria and South Africa a peer economy, we have actually a factor of 40 times. We are 4 times their population. They have 10 times more power than us. And so, it's a very pathetic story. But this is the way. Otherwise, you continue to hear this story about 5 megawatt and 5 megawatt, for a very long time. So moving it out. But of course, not only that funding is coming in. To be honest with you, the real mistake that was made on day one was the day one of privatization. They just took all that money and then used it to settle salaries. And, I was patently opposed to that. I said, put back that $3 billion, let them borrow against it and double the size of the network. You're asking private sector that are borrowed to the hilt to pay that 49%, and then you're telling them to go and borrow again to buy meter, do that. So I opposed that from the very day. But that money was going to go to settle salaries.
Just as you said, power is one of those constraints. But then if we look at it, from what we have gathered is also information out there to everyone, is that about 30 states were not able to attract any investments in the third quarter. 30 states of Nigeria were not able to attract any investment, consequently going directly to the needs or not of the people in their environment. What went wrong? And what should we have done or should we be doing? Okay.
Well, the thing about when you come to capital importation is a slightly different story, because you are going to ask the question, what has come in? I've already begun by saying that we're just about 1.4 billion, when we should have been around 5 to 6 billion this quarter, to be, compared to last year and the year before. The thing is that COVID was responsible for that collapse. But ask a question, where is money going to the private sector now? The corporate community are able to raise money now with commercial papers, with corporate bonds, because the interest have gone down. Treasury bill yield is gone down to less than 1%. So they are actually coming to the market to take money at 5%.
My apologies,
Prof, for them.
I'm concerned about the fact that, just as you said, the macroeconomic issues are the ones that the people feel. That's why it is disconcerting that states were not able to attract investment, while 6 states at least were able to. So what did they miss? In spite of COVID, a good number of people would say yes, but we should still be able to undulate around, at least just to stabilize. So if we are going to get out of a recession as quickly as the federal government is saying, it falls back to the states. And that is why I'm concerned. What do we need to do?
Well, states are just a part of the equation. And the flow of the...
How significant?
No, they are significant because in terms of federation revenue, they get almost half. And then economy is on the concurrent list. So they are active players.
So that's
as federal government.
That half should account for something.
Lagos got 82% of the capital importation. Because Lagos is on a different planet. Compared to all the economic indices. Please, a different planet. My colleague mentioned about security issues. Security is paramount in the minds of many investors because you don't risk your life because you want to invest. You don't risk your assets or capital because you want to invest. And this security are more pervasive in some states. So there are many issues that are hostage to this fortune. But the fact of the matter is, what can we do about improving liquidity? Because the whole problem with Nigeria now is liquidity crisis.
So what can we do?
Right. Now what we can do is this. We have good arguments on why we should borrow. Because the reason why many countries are going to 200% debt to GDP ratio is because they have infrastructure. So we needed to get it. But it is not just give us money for infrastructure. You must be accountable. It must be sustainable. It must be capable of repaying itself. So the borrowing must be, must fit the purpose.
Do we have that structure now?
The alternatives.
My apologies. On that same point, do we have the infrastructure now? Do we have the structure now, the system to sustain that borrowing in a way that it can pay back itself?
Well, the challenge that we have is we are not bringing enough private capital into that mix. We have an arrangement to bring in a 15 trillion infrastructure company, a new company, to be capitalized with 15 trillion, which is naira, not dollars. And that will take away the burden of all this infrastructure from government, the big ones. And then let government focus on social inclusion, health, and then all other stuff, and work with state governments. But it's still in the works. And government is going to produce about $3 billion guarantee, sovereign guarantee. That is in the works. And that will be a critical mass of private sector engagement that will take away this whole problem going on infrastructure.
Okay.
But coming back to your question about what do we do about liquidity. Now, the narrative on our borrowing has always been, you're taking money and they haven't got the capacity to pay. So you are insolvent, technically insolvent. But that shouldn't be the only narrative. We have assets. Nobody talks about our assets. Saudi Arabia needed some money, being among the richest, but they still needed some money. And then they went to say, okay, Saudi Aramco, what is your value? We want to raise money through you. What's your value? The value of the company was $1.something trillion. Then they say, okay, if we have that much, give me only how many percent? They took 25 billion for 2%. Now we have so many idle assets belonging to government. And we're looking at it right now. And then you see, what is the business having prisons right in the heart of the cities? I know they were built 60 years ago or more. What is the point having some of these army barracks in the heart of the city? Dodan barracks, they could become huge development centers, and you have billions of dollars pouring from outside to redevelop that into big time estates, mortuaries. You understand what I mean? And you can raise money.
Okay.
And then there are other things there are many assets that are lying there. I know BPE is trying to do some, but we have assets.
Okay. Let me take this also with Dr. Adi. We love quick wins. Yes. We need to do the sustainable ones as opposed to the subsistence ones, but what are those things we need to do as quickly as possible to, step up this proposition of Dr. Ife about liquidity? Oh, well, I think that we don't have Professor Adi just now.
I thought he was physically on the studio.
No. He's joined us virtually. So now this is where we are now, Prof. And government is looking at a number of things. You both have said that government is doing something. The word on the street will be, okay, I can feel it. Well, we are also not unaware of the economic sustainability plan, which government has begun to deploy, even though, not as quickly, as effectively as, people would expect. Talking about the ESP, how significant is it in solving the problem that we have on our hands right now?
Okay, we'll be making a mistake if we think that just because government commits to 2.3 trillion naira on economic sustainability, that is going to solve everybody's problem. No. What happens is that you have to see government as sending a big signal. In anything that it does, it's about sending signal. It's just like when CBN Monetary Policy Committee decide to reduce the monetary policy rate by 0.2% or by 5%, 2% or 1%. It's not that that is going to, it may not even affect any borrowing at all, but it sends a signal to the financial sector that this is where the policy is moving, and then they begin to respond. So some of those are signal. So from the World Bank, they're getting $750 million on account of the economic sustainability plan, and then you've seen how that money is going to be split. A lot of it is going to social sector and all that stuff. It is signal. It's not going to solve all the problem, but it's sending a very important signal. Now the states are going to get help, the other $750 million for states to get help under their fiscal sustainability plan, fiscal transparency and all that plan, but also to help them strengthen their internal revenue generation capacity, because that's where they can now bring in more money to commit to addressing some of the challenges.
But how powerfully have the states themselves, from the reports that we have, how powerfully have they been able to generate internal revenue? Because some of them were not able to do it in the last quarter.
Well, Lagos is a shining example of how a state can do it, where they deploy technology. They are in the frontiers of technology in revenue generation and revenue collection and management. Many states are beginning to follow their example. So they're a model that is being cascaded across the states, and that's what we should be doing in this country. Yes, many of the states have even seen a decline in their IGR because of the knock-on effect of the COVID. Don't forget that many businesses have closed forever from the thing. So many haven't got the capacity to spring back. So when they laid off their workers and they couldn't come back, that is it for them. Well, so where are you going to collect the tax?
Well, Prof, we have to close in a minute or two, but let's look at this. The ordinary man out there is really very concerned. I'm sure you are aware of that. Christmas is just around the corner. The New Year is how many days away? Christmas is exactly 9 days away from now, and the New Year add another 7 days to that. Where are we, and what should they be looking forward to?
Well, I think it could have been worse. We came in at minus 3.1% GDP rate, but it could have been worse. Many countries are in double digit. I mean, South Africa, you know that. Many of them are in double digit. So what I would say that there is hope. As long as we live, there is hope. And I'm sure that help is coming. And we are looking forward to more recovery, even by the end of this quarter. And definitely by early next year, we will see a significant recovery. We are going into dry season farming. A lot of money is being poured. Over $500 billion was poured into farming season this year, and more are going in this wet season. So, and then we are also in harvest period. So we are hoping that inflation will be affected slightly, and that there will be. It's just hope.
The question.
Government is doing something.
Well, I don't know how many people will agree with you on that one, given that just as you and Dr. Adi have said, security is a major issue in this conundrum. So we have the challenge. How will we be able to get the kind of harvests that we want if people cannot go to their farms?
Big challenge, without a doubt, because you don't have to look far to see the kidnappings going on and the shooting going on. But we're still alive. But those of us who are alive have to have hope. And that hope is predicated on government and states and federal and every individual and private working together.
But is that
and deploying resources?
That challenge of that collaboration is what a number of people are wondering. Is it there in the first place, the federal government and the states? But I guess we can leave that to a conversation for another time. We have to thank you very much this morning for being part of this conversation. Professor Ken Ife is a macroeconomic policy analyst, as well as Dr. Bongo Adi, who is a senior lecturer at the Lagos Business School, as well as an economist. He joined us virtually from Lagos. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning. Well, that's the much we can take of Sunrise Daily today. Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
I'm Chamberlain Uso.